Aloha, it is All Things Considered, member-supported Hawaii Public Radio. I'm Dave Lawrence, and thank you very much for listening. Today we are welcoming a very special guest from legendary Boston band Aerosmith. Alongside Joe Perry, Brad Whitford plays guitar for the group. He's also been an integral part of their sound since the early 70s, from day one with the recorded work of the band. He's reunited a fun side project you might recall from the early 80s, Whitford St. Holmes, with singer Derek St. Holmes from Ted Nugent's band. New album, Reunion, features the first single, Shapes, and it is a pleasure to welcome Brad now for a conversation on All Things Considered. Aloha and mahalo, Brad. Thank you for taking time for us.
Mahalo. How are you?
Very good, brother. Thanks for asking. Yourself?
Doing great, thanks.
Got to be proud of this new project. I know you guys toured last year, but how did you and Derek decide to get it going again?
Well, we'd been kind of living in different parts of the country for the last 30 years, and a couple years ago, we ended up living in the same town just outside of Nashville. It was just natural for us to be playing, jamming, and of course we started writing. And we got to the point where, wow, we got an album here. So we put a band together.
And the material, I've been listening to it, very bluesy, hard-rocking sound. His voice just sounds amazing. I don't know how he keeps it sounding like that. When you talk about that writing process, about how long did it evolve? Was it something where you intentionally sat down and started doing some songs together? Was it more of an organic thing where you were spending time together and they just kind of came out? Flesh that out a bit for us.
Well, definitely more organic. We would just be hanging out almost on a daily basis, and after one or two cups of coffee, we would be picking up guitars and jamming and just playing away. And this song started to come out of the whole process. I'd have an idea, or he'd have an idea, and we'd just flesh it out. It's a good writing team. It's a great writing team. It comes very easy for us, and that's really rare.
And that's an important thing, and we'll get to that in just a moment about the differences in how songs are written and what you just pointed out, the different approaches that teams, if you will, the collaboration can take. Shapes is the first single, but it could be different work on there that came together first. Which was the first tune? And then, in addition to that, talk about Shapes itself and some of the writing of that and why you decided to go with it as a single.
I'm trying to think of I'm not sure what the very first song was that we put together for this record. But as far as Shapes is kind of that was sort of our tribute to the Yardbirds, just kind of a nod to
Shapes of Things.
Jeff Beck.
Right.
And actually stole a little bit of the idea from the song Shapes of Things.
Right.
With a little bit of a vocal nod to that. And it just sort of bubbled to the top of when we'd play it for people and go, you should put that out as a single. It just kind of happened on its own that people gravitated toward that song.
And you guys both come from that classic 70s hard-rocking sound, so no surprise that you could gel together in terms of coming up with this material and the way it sounds. Not a real stretch for fans of the previous record or of Aerosmith or Nugent, that sort of thing. It's got to be an interesting thing for folks listening because you're so associated with Aerosmith, yet you've got this, and as I just pointed out, the sound of it is faithful to the kind of thing you're known for through the years. You were talking about the songwriting process being something that you easily click with him. Do you go back a long ways with Derek? I got to imagine that besides the 81 thing, that in the 70s, your paths crossed then too.
We toured together with Ted Nugent extensively, and that's really where we became fast friends in the mid-70s because of that. So we would hang out a lot, and of course we'd play. And the writing just started to happen. It just kind of came natural. And it's easy. We're not sure how to describe it. It's just we're both into the exact same kind of music, and we're extremely generous with each other when it comes to creating. And we just let the ideas, there's no such thing as a bad idea, really. If something doesn't really cut it, we just move on to the next thing. And it comes easy. The easy part is the rare part. It's very hard to meet a songwriting partner that you have that kind of chemistry with. So it's a really great thing.
Now that leads one to wonder, describe the difference. How does it work when you've come up with Aerosmith material? How is this different than the writing process for Aerosmith?
It's totally different. There's less voices with Derek and I. In Aerosmith, it ends up being usually done more in a group situation, and so the song we'll have a chance to go in a lot of different directions where Derek and I know exactly where it's going to go. It's just him and I, and it's totally different with Aerosmith, totally different.
Sounds like it's more of a labor to do the Aerosmith material.
Yes, it is. It's more politics than actual creativity, and that's the part I don't like.
And that's the thing when people think about bands. Over the years, I've discovered in talking to folks that what you pointed out something pretty important. A lot of the times it goes beyond the songwriting thing because unfortunately this business that we're in is so filled with ego too, which is a very big, I guess it can help people get places, but it can also hinder processes too. And it sounds like this has been a relationship with Derek where you guys are more on your own page. And also you pointed out something really valuable too, Brad. I guess when you just have two cats together, it lends itself to being more agreeable.
Much more so because we come from the exact same school of rock. And it makes it a lot easier. The thing is, almost everybody in this band has worked with people in other bands where the ego thing has been a big deal. So this band, we're not subject to any of that kind of personality or thinking. It's like we got a whole band of side musicians, sort of. So we've all had that experience of dealing with the raging egos and stuff, and it just gets in the way. It has nothing to do with creativity. So
right, that's a great point.
Yeah,
and it can be very divisive. That's what I was pointing to. That it can really drag a project down. People really forget maybe why they're in it to begin with, especially when it starts to become a big business. Something I definitely learned from talking with guys in the Grateful Dead. Once something becomes such a massive operation, you got so many people's paychecks depending on it. It becomes this big moving beast that needs to be maintained, so to speak.
Very true. And I think to really get a good song has to be very honest, and that's a tough place to get to, but that's where real music comes from. I mean, true to what moves you and what kind of music you want to create, and then being able to do it. It's just a very organic process. Like on this record, I wrote a lot of lyrics on this new record, which I've never really done. I've maybe attempted it before, but nothing I could ever get done in Aerosmith. And in this band, I was really encouraged to do it, and it worked out really well. It's a very creative space that we have set up for ourselves. We keep the fun factor high. You know, we're working, but it doesn't feel like work at all.
I'm sure your fans listening got to think, well, at this point in his career, he must not really have to work. So it sort of must be more of a labor of love as opposed to a labor like I was referring to where it's got to get done because 90 people's paychecks are riding on it.
Yeah, well, this band is pretty much like going back to the beginning. We decided to make this record and we funded it ourselves. So we didn't have anybody looking over our shoulder. No record companies, nothing. We said yay or nay, thumbs up, thumbs down on everything. And we had people that wanted to come in and produce the record for us, but we decided, you know what, we've got enough experience between the two of us to write and produce this ourselves. And that's what we decided to do. And therefore, it really is Derek and myself allowed to do what we would like to do. And we're very happy with the results.
Give a plug to the other cats who worked on it with you. You mentioned them by way of talking about it's a band full of side cats, so you guys are kind of parking the ego. You all have dealt with the big ego thing in big bands. Tell us who else played on the record and also where the recording was done.
We recorded the album right here in Nashville. It's actually about 10 minutes from where I live, so it's very convenient. And we were really fortunate to get on drums. We have Troy Lucetta from Tesla. When we got him in for his audition, he was like the last element that made the whole thing click. He's just tremendous talent. And somebody else who he was really excited about the music. He understood it right away. We didn't have to explain anything to him. He knew what we were doing. And he also clicked very well with our bass player, Charlie Chopper Anderson, who was probably one of the first musicians I met when I moved to the Nashville area, and tremendous bass player. He played for years with Reba McEntire, did an awful lot of studio work here in Nashville, extremely well-rounded player, can play anything from rock to jazz to country. And what they contributed to these songs was amazing. And then we have Buck Johnson, who's now the keyboard player for Aerosmith. And he came on pretty recently with the Aerosmith thing, and we became instant friends. And he also lives here. And I thought he would be the perfect complement to this music. So he came on board, and it all just worked so well. Really just worked so well.
It's funny how Nashville factors so much into, you're living there now, you got these cats from Nashville working alongside of you, and when you pull the lens back, and we're thinking about your role that most people know you from as well, which is Aerosmith, and you got Steven doing something relating to country. What did the other guys think of this project, and is it any coincidence that you're there in Nashville, and he's also doing his own thing, totally separate, but it also has a country-ish flavor?
Yeah, well, his intention was to do a country album. I've only heard a few things on it, but he's got some great material. Actually, he's got one of the songs Steven recorded was written by my son, Graham. The thing about Nashville is you're a player. You can literally be in this mode of writing, playing, performing, jamming on a 24/7 basis if you want to, because there's so many players here. It's a great lifestyle. It really is a great lifestyle here.
You get any feedback from the other cats in Aerosmith about this record?
I don't know if they've all heard it. The only person I've heard from is, big surprise, Joe Perry, and he loves it. But I haven't really gotten any feedback yet from the other guys. We'll see where I think they'll enjoy it. I think they'll enjoy it.
That's pretty cool about your son. I was unaware of your son. That's a really interesting angle, writing the tune for Steven. How did that end up happening?
My son Graham is really the reason I ended up here in Nashville, because the band that he works with they were kind of deciding to make their home here in Nashville. And I came here to kind of help him get settled, find a place to live, and help him move and stuff like that, and I fell in love with the place, so I moved here. But Graham plays in a band called Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown, and they're just an awesome band. They're actually over in Europe opening for AC/DC, so that's probably one of the best support positions anybody could ever ask for, and they've got it.
Right.
But his girlfriend, her name is Alyssa Bonagura. She's a singer-songwriter, and Graham's drummer, Caleb Crosby, is another songwriter. The three of them wrote this song together, and Steven heard it, and he said, I want to cut that for my album. And a couple of weeks back, sure enough, they did, and it's a great track. I think it might end up being one of the best tracks on his album.
That's a great way to, a couple steps removed, be collaborating in a way. After all these years, and I have a personal connection, I guess I should tell you. I went to Emerson. I lived in Boston for 12 years. I worked at BCN and ZLX. I even lived in Austin, Rock City, right near where your place was. What does Kelton Street mean to you today, other than parking nightmares from those days on Com Ave?
The parking nightmare. I remember back in the early days of Aerosmith, we met these traveling acting group, and they had a school bus, and they needed to sell it. So with the generosity of Joe Perry's mom, who put up, I think, most of the money, we bought this school bus, never realizing that there was no place to park it legally in that area. You couldn't just park it on the street. They would give you a ticket. So that turned into a real nightmare for us, trying to figure out, now we got a bus, but we can't park it anywhere. Eventually they took it from us. The police came and they towed it away and ended up sitting behind some police station warehouse. We could drive by and look at it, but we couldn't afford to get it out. But what a crazy thing. We couldn't park it anywhere.
That's a great story. How long did you guys live in that place on Com Ave?
We weren't there too long. We're probably there about 2 years or so. And then, the eventual guys in the band started hooking up with different girlfriends. And people started slowly moving out to go live with their girlfriends.
Makes sense how it would
Of course.
I get it. Sort of like a dorm experience. Your own Aerosmith version of college dorm, I guess you could say.
Right, exactly.
And not a bad spot to do it. You're right in between BC and BU, so your story really makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
We got to play a lot of Boston College. We had some connections there. They actually gave us free rehearsal space. It was a great experience, a great place to kind of get the thing going.
Oh, I bet. I talked to Joe a couple of years ago. It was not long after you guys did what, for me, as you can imagine, having lived on Kelton Street, it was surreal. I live out here and have been here for a long time, but when I saw that show that you did back in front of the old place and with the bottled liquor sign, Brad, right across the street, that place is still there. That must have been quite a trip for you.
I never thought we were going to pull that off. How are they going to do that with the trains and the streets, everything? But it was a really fun experience. It was kind of a great way to just pay a tribute to that, the whole beginning of it. Yeah.
It's so surreal. You're right there with them. To try to paint a picture for folks who are not familiar, there's the above-ground subway line runs there in the middle of the street. It's a very big street, Commonwealth Avenue. So to have that get shut down and do it, I guess it was daytime. It was totally daylight when the shot was done. Tens of thousands of people jamming the street. You've done venues all over the world, stadiums, all this stuff. But there you are in the middle of the street in Boston. I've got to think that was one of the most surreal concerts in your life.
Like I said, I really didn't think it was going to come together. I said, no way, but they did it, and it was a great tribute. It really was.
How'd you first end up joining Aerosmith? What's your earliest memory of meeting those cats?
Well, I was playing in a band. I was going to Berklee College of Music, and it was summertime. I ended up working with some friends playing a club out on Nantucket Island. We were just living the life. They gave us a house to live in and got to play every night, practice as much as we wanted to. But these guys that I was in this band with, they knew Aerosmith. Aerosmith had just gotten together, and sometimes I would hear stories about the band or whatever. But I didn't know who they were. I didn't know anything about them. But a few weeks later, we ended up playing up in New Hampshire with this band, and that's Joe and Tom came by to see the band, and that was when I first met them. And I think it was about a week later, I got a call from Joe, just, hey, let's hang out. And that really was the beginning of me becoming part of Aerosmith.
What was your first concert as a kid?
One of my first concerts that I saw really wasn't more of a club scene. It was the Kingsmen, Louie.
What venue?
I don't even know if it's still there. It was someplace in Massachusetts. Probably one of the first big real shows I saw was, I think, the Dave Clark 5 in Boston. 65, 66, something like that.
You ever see the Yardbirds back then in Boston?
No, I didn't. I didn't catch them.
When you're doing the Whitford St. Holmes and you guys, I was looking at some of your tour plans, hoping that, crossing our fingers, putting a subliminal in your head that maybe you'll bring it out to Hawaii. But when I see some of the touring that you're doing and you're around bands like that you've known for years through the process of working for Aerosmith, is that something that you set it up based on your relationships, or it must be kind of special because all these acts, you know them all. You've done this for so long.
Well, yeah, a lot of it is friendships and stuff. Definitely play a part in it, for sure. I've been fortunate to make a lot of good friends in the business, and it makes it easier at this point for a lot of things. I have a good, solid reputation, so it pays off.
Right, and you've always had that kind of role in the band. Not a cat who's had a lot of controversy, not one of the toxic twins. You were kind of doing your own thing. It must help all these years later. What's your opinion, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? What year did you guys get your nod from them?
Oh, gosh.
Years ago, long time back, right?
Yeah. I don't even remember what year it was.
It's not even important because I'm using it as a reference point anyway. So you got in a ways back, as you should have been. What do you think about the whole Steve Miller thing and his comments on the selection and induction process? Have you paid any attention to that? Maybe you haven't even noticed it.
I didn't hear what Steve said.
See, shows how busy you are. Well, bless you. You're busy working. We don't even need to get into it if you haven't paid attention to it.
But I know, I've heard, I guess it's just, I don't know why it is certain people get overlooked. I don't know why that is, or why it takes so long for some people to be recognized. it's, again, come back to just politics, I guess.
And there is a lot of that, no question. And I think
there is, yeah.
That thing has been, maybe you check it out if you're curious, you look into what Steve said. I mean, I got to believe you've known Steve a long time too, yeah?
Actually, never met Steve.
Wow. That's...
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. There's a lot of, it's amazing who you meet and who you don't meet, and then, you've been doing it for so long, and you think the community would be a little smaller, but sometimes it isn't.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Great point that you just said. A lot of things people just assume. And as I go to wrap it up with you, just a couple more questions here. Causes or concerns in the world that's something you care about, things that are about your personality that away from music, when you're on your own, things that you get into to try to help out those in need, or situations that you pay attention to. Could be animals getting poached, could be diseases, could be ways that you just want to give back to the community, or issues that you'd like to bring to the front. Is there any of that in your life that drives you forward?
Well, I'm not. I mean, I've thought about getting more active in certain areas. I mean, I've always been a huge animal rights person, and in the past we've done things for a lot of stuff for the veterans, and invested some time and effort for breast cancer, but visiting some of the veterans is probably one of the most moving experiences I've ever had. It's just, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's very rewarding. I hope that it was appreciated on their end. I think it was.
And as a good final question, you mentioned the vets. Hawaii, one of the most militarized states, a lot of military here. You guys have been a few different times. Any specific memories or experiences here that come to mind, knowing that you're talking to an audience across the state of Hawaii?
Oh, gosh, just one of my favorite places on the planet. We used to play there a lot more. Anytime we'd ever be going over to Asia, we'd always stop on the way over or the way back. And that was always a fun thing. But as the industry changed, a lot of that stopped happening for us in Hawaii. But spent a lot of time there, and just, like I said, it's one of my favorite places on the planet.
It's also where Joe got the first run through of Walk This Way, he told me, was right here in 1975 at the Blaisdell in Honolulu. It was where he came up with that tune. So you guys are connected in that way too.
Right. Yeah. We, that's a very creative part of the world, I think, actually. Yeah.
Good man. Sounded great. Brad, I hope you had fun talking today. It was a lot of fun getting to pick your brain. And as somebody who used to eat a lot of pizza at Supreme Pizza, which was right across the street from your alma mater, it was great catching up with you, bud. And I hope that you bring the band out here. Know that you'll be well received. It'll be wonderful to see you. It's Brad Whitford, guitarist, legendary cat from Aerosmith, Whitford St. Holmes Band. Reunion is the new record, and Shape's first single from it. Wishing you a lot of success, a lot of good luck, and we appreciate your time today, Brad.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Take care. Aloha, brother.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Brad Whitford. Aloha, Hawaii. Brad Whitford here from Aerosmith and the Whitford St. Holmes Band. You're tuned to my buddy, Dave Lawrence, on member-supported Hawaii Public Radio. And thanks for supporting HPR.